Hi folks, I'm Katie Baum-Mettenbrink with the WRMC Steering Committee. The Reb Gregg Award recognizes exceptional leadership, service, and innovation in wilderness risk management. I am so thrilled to introduce you all to our 2020 award recipient. Sara Souza is a seriously impressive and inspiring human being, as you'll see here in a minute. She leads the University of California's Center of Excellence for Field Safety. She provides guidance and support to academic field research programs across the enormous UC system. One of my steering committee colleagues recently sat down with Sara to hear more about her work. I cannot wait for you to meet her. Enjoy this conversation, and congratulations again to Sara Souza.
Hi everyone, my name is Steve Pace, and the pronouns I use are he, him, and his. I live in Prescott, Arizona, which is situated on the traditional land of both the Yavapai Apache and Hohokam peoples. Today I have the real pleasure of being with Sara Souza, this year's Reb Gregg Award winner. And I'd like to start off, Sara, by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Steve. Hi, everyone. My name is Sara Souza, and I work at the University of California, Berkeley, and I support safe and successful field research. And our campus was founded in 1868 and sits on land that was and continues to be of great importance to Ohlone people. And I always appreciate book recommendations. So as part of my land acknowledgement, I'd actually like to suggest a book from a local author and a UC grad. It's called An Indigenous People's History of the United States.
Thank you. So what was it like to receive that phone call where you were told you received the award?
I was definitely surprised and honored. I have a lot of respect for the Wilderness Risk Management Conference organization and community. And I do feel in my role working for a research institution, a bit of an outlier, but definitely a great positive surprise getting that phone call. And it's also a reminder, that good news and recognition often comes when you need it the most. So that week, as many people have probably heard in the news, we had a huge lightning storm in California and it sparked multiple fires. And so that week we had wildfires approaching or burning on 6 different UC reserves and field station sites. So it was very stressful. There was also a different fire that was burning just north of UC Santa Cruz campus. They got within a mile of campus and the whole campus was evacuated. So it was pretty crazy by all measures and bleak. And so receiving that phone call was sort of a nice pause to just be recognized for efforts and leadership and innovation, and sort of triggered a pause for me to reflect on the bigger picture, because I think we get really consumed during a crisis especially, but often in our work lives and just the details and response and very small parts of it. And receiving this award, I'm very thankful. And I think the pause and the reflection is also a really nice benefit of it. So thank you to everyone that was part of the panel, and also to the sponsors, my colleagues at UC Santa Barbara and UCLA that nominated me.
Well, you're very deserving, Sara, and I've been really excited to learn more about you. One thing that I always wonder about people is what inspires them to do what they do. And so I'm going to ask you, what inspired you to do this kind of field risk management work?
Okay, well, I've had, like many people probably involved in this conference, I've had a variety of outdoor jobs. And it started, my first job actually was building trails as part of the Youth Conservation Corps at Redwood National Park. I was also a lifeguard. And then I earned a degree in environmental sciences and a master's in public health. So most of my professional training and experience is really an exposure assessment and doing air, water, and soil sampling. I've had a variety of jobs for California Department of Public Health, for an environmental engineering firm, and then working for the university. So those have all influenced sort of the road to get to this point. And I would add to that also some experiences that were really beneficial in my current role for perspective is I also studied abroad at the University of Cape Town in South Africa, and I worked on a women's health study in rural Guatemala as well. And so those experiences have all kind of led to this position that I am in now. And I've been in this role for 4 years. It's a position that never existed before. So it allows a lot of innovation and sort of network building, and it's been a great opportunity for me to use the various background and skills that I have. It was created out of a recognized need to better support our outdoor workers and field researchers. So it's by no means a stagnant program. It's still, I would say, very early in its development, and we've certainly made progress, but there's a ton of challenges and sort of organizational challenges to face as well.
The University of California's system is huge.
Yes.
There's lots of campuses, there's field stations, there's people going out and doing all kinds of research. What are the scope of your responsibilities?
So the scale of the University of California is daunting. We're a 10-campus system. Of course, we do teaching, but we're also a big research enterprise, and field sciences is a big part of that. So let me just gather my thoughts here for a little bit. My role, I work out of Berkeley Environment, Health, and Safety, but I'm basically funded by our Risk Services Department to support efforts system-wide. And to think about the scale, here at Berkeley alone, we have over 80 field sciences labs. So those are groups that go out and collect samples and bring them back to campus to their lab. We have around 30 research groups that do wildlife research. And that could be in Alaska, it could be here in California, it could be in Africa, all over the world. And then we also have a lot of professional research staff. They work in UC Forestry or Berkeley Seismology Lab. We have the UC Botanical Garden. And then we have a number of museums, like the Museum of Vertebrate Zoology, our anthropology, paleontology, entomology. So there's just this huge workforce really that is going out and doing research and teaching and collection and observation, field testing in all different types of settings. So yeah, so it certainly can be daunting. And then I mentioned the wildfires in our reserves earlier. We have a network of 41 UC natural reserve sites. So they're reserves and field stations. Most of those have a reserve manager and a steward that live on site or work on site. So a big part of my job is also supporting and coordinating them. So in all of this, I play a very small part. I mean, it is just, a lot going on at a lot of different levels. A few achievements that I'm proud of that I'd like to highlight is that since I've been in this role, we've increased our numbers of researchers taking wilderness first aid drastically. We have hundreds of people getting training every year. I manage a SAT device loaner program. I've developed training such as an epi-auto injector program. I coordinate a lot of workshops and training. I send out a newsletter, and that sort of audience has grown and diversified quite a bit as it's evolved. A newsletter that really highlights lessons learned, field reports. I really like to highlight groups that are doing an exceptional job and have them, share pictures from the field and sort of what some challenges were and how they dealt with it, and advice that may be beneficial to others. And then I use it also as an opportunity to share news or incidents, and also any training opportunities, things like that. So that's a big part of what I do. I juggle, quite a bit day to day. A really rewarding part of my job is that I can promote different initiatives that are happening. So an example of that is out of UC Santa Cruz, a group has developed a bystander training for harassment and assault in field sciences. And by partnering with them, we can work to scale that up and get that out to a lot of different groups at a lot of different levels. So I think that's a really important area. There's a lot of positive efforts and changes happening when it comes to inclusion and equity in the field. And I mentioned I do want to make a quick plug for, there is a new film that came out. It's called Picturing a Scientist, and I highly recommend people that work in field, just outdoor work in general with field teams or groups or in any way related to field research, check out that film. It's really important. And I think, a lot of positive changes are happening in that area. Yeah, I looked at quite a bit there. I do juggle quite a bit. In the recent weeks, I've been almost completely consumed with wildfire smoke response. I manage a sensor network, so I'm actually collecting data on PM 2.5 levels. And so I'm still doing quite a bit of like the exposure assessment and environmental monitoring as part of my job as well. So I really enjoy still having that, that role as well. But it is challenging to make decisions when, the whole West Coast has been blanketed with unhealthy air for a long time. Today here in Berkeley is the first day in a week that we've had an air quality index below 150. So it feels really nice actually to be able to see the sky and feel a little sunlight. It's been a difficult thing. And part of my role is also helping make decisions on whether operations can proceed, if things need to close, how to manage kind of that dynamic issue.
So I understand that one of the things that you've done is you've built a culture of safety from the bottom up. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you work to achieve that?
Yeah, I appreciate sort of hearing it described that way. And I think it's really the only way to do it successfully, especially when it comes to field research, because there's really a history of people just being independent, and people joke that everyone just kind of goes rogue and figures it out on their own. But I think there is a culture change there, and there's a lot more people looking for support and training and want to have better preparations in place before they head out into remote areas certainly, or do hazardous work in the field. So when I started in my role, in some ways I was really fortunate that it wasn't in response to any specific incident, and there wasn't necessarily a clear mandate on exactly what I had to accomplish. There's just so many areas where there's challenges that in the beginning I really focused on getting out and meeting people and traveling around the state and visiting our natural reserves and being in their element and kind of observing what they do, talking to them about what their pressures are, what their hazards, who's using our reserves, what are things that have come up, what are the things that keep them up that they're concerned about, and really in more of a passive way, kind of just listening and observing. And I also fortunately get to learn a lot about all these different operations. How they launch boats off of the pier at the Scripps Pier in San Diego, and how researchers are installing, for example, an excavation for earthquake early detection warning system. We have all these groups that are doing these really important big projects. So for me to engage with them and kind of grow the culture and support people, I felt it was really important and rewarding, I think, for both sides to build that trust and to build that recognition and an awareness of what people are doing in the field. So I've been up to White Mountain and participated in a physiology study, and I've been down to some of our desert research stations and along the coast. And we had a lot of good trainings in place already. I did a motorboat operator training up at Bodega Marine Lab. And if there's something going on like cold water immersion survival training, like I'm the first one being like, hey, can I come? I want to go do that. Like I really appreciate learning from others and just getting in there and doing it. A similar example is tower climbing and rescue. We have different researchers that maintain equipment up on towers and at height. And it's not something we really had a training program for. That group, and also people that are climbing trees, there's specialized skills involved there. And if you just show a picture of like, yeah, there's this 100-foot tower and we have people climbing it, that really freaks a lot of people out. But if you go out and do training with them and kind of understand the equipment and understand their skills and do it together, I think that that's been really positive. And then people are more open to sharing their expertise and their lessons learned and being more candid about things that go wrong. And then I can kind of facilitate that at a broader level. I really am trying to create forums where people can come together and talk about all these challenges. And in person is so much more productive. Unfortunately, right now during COVID, we're not able to do as much hands-on training. We're not able to just do these workshops with people in the same room. But it's really incredible when those conversations and those forums exist where, you know, a public health researcher working in Tanzania can talk to a wildlife biologist, and their science is different, but a lot of the challenges and hazards and issues they're facing are similar. So I like to think that those are some of the big successes are making those connections and creating forums. And then I really enjoy promoting projects that are just doing exceptional work. And I think people do learn from their peers. So if a group sees, you know, if engineers are doing this and taking out a SAT device and are just like, you know, doing this prep, then it's like, hey, wait, how come our group doesn't have that? Should we be doing that too? And it starts to slowly trigger some change and some better practices in the field.
So it sounds like you collaborate, you respect, support, and have real relationships with people and share your enthusiasm. And that creates people wanting to work with you. Is that right?
Yeah, I try to. That's absolutely my intent. I mean, the benefit of the research and the data and the science, you know, is very broad, but the challenges, I mean, fieldwork is hard. People are often kind of thrown into really tough conditions without a lot of support and have to figure things out on their own. So I don't want every single person to have to make the same mistakes and figure out the same problems. And I think that just creating this network and this program, we're starting to be able to share lessons learned and support people and make the science, you know, perhaps a little bit easier to get done.
So we talked about some of the successes and the ways that you make things happen, but I'm sure that there were a lot of obstacles. When I worked at a college, the adventure education people were used to safety, and when we would try to translate that over to environmental studies or anthropology or something else, it was a slightly different culture. And so I faced some obstacles, and I'm wondering what obstacles you've had to overcome to implement new protocols across the system.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of challenges, and I have to constantly justify the importance of a lot of the initiatives. So even the bureaucracy of like paperwork and funding is difficult. Our funding sources are really complicated. So getting the service plans for our SAT device program, like getting that paid and like explaining what it is and why this is important and why it's, you know, safety equipment for research, you know, takes more effort than I wish. You know, there's just a lot of details. Hiring vendors. I sponsored a NOLS risk management training earlier this year, and we had people come from different campuses. And, you know, just getting people paid, it's like, it just feels harder than it should. Even if I have the budget, it's just those details can be daunting, you know, taking care of catering for a meeting. It's like those kind of things you would think, you know, would be smooth. But I think both for my role and then certainly for field researchers as well that have complicated, you know, expenses in the field, those kind of things are difficult. And you kind of just have to keep, you know, it's part of doing work and, you know, keep focused on the benefit and not get too frustrated with the hurdles. There's one sort of, I think it's sort of a comical example, and I understand all perspectives in it, but a couple years ago, I organized a 4-wheel drive training, and we hired some vendors and brought together some various groups that are doing work like up at Sierra Nevada Research Institute that are going out on Forest Service land, and people that are, you know, that they have 4-wheel drive trucks in their department, and I think there was a rep from UC Ag and Natural Resources. You know, we had a group of people that did that. And to get them paid, it got flagged as a high-risk activity. And we needed to get, you know, a special insurance certificate because, you know, they considered, you know, 4-wheel drive use, you know, high risk. And I was like, exactly, that's why we're doing the training. That's why we want to like practice in a controlled environment. And, you know, it's just, there always seems to be these little hurdles when you suggest something new or try to coordinate a new training or bring in a new vendor. And those things, it does wear on me, but I'm getting better at it and I'm getting more resilient and I'm learning, you know, who can help. And those kind of systems, I think, in any large organization can be difficult, and the ultimate, benefit is always worth it. But, I won't deny that stuff is difficult. And I know that certainly international researchers and others that, are trying to get things expensed, just trying to get like their water and their equipment supplies and things like that, and training in the field paid for. It always seems a little harder than it should.
There's so many things that you do. I always wonder, what are the most meaningful parts of a job for somebody, and the things that keep you doing it, even though it's challenging and a huge amount of responsibility.
Yeah, well, I'd say some of the core things that keep me motivated is, first of all, I love wild places. I love the outdoors. I grew up in Humboldt County, which is near the Oregon border. So I was really fortunate as a child. Humboldt State has a really good outdoor education program, and I was involved as a kid. They would take us rafting and cross-country skiing and rock climbing. So I had that great outdoor education experience early on in my life. And so I think the outdoors often brings out the best in people. And so the people I'm working with really motivate me as well. People that are doing, climate science and conservation and wildlife biology, they're really passionate about what they do. So I definitely absorb quite a bit of that, and conservation and climate science, I think, is really important to me, and hopefully it is, I would imagine for most participants in the Wilderness Risk Management Conference. And I'm also a science nerd. I mean, I really like the data. I think it's fascinating to see what people are doing, their methods, how they're collecting data, just hearing their stories about like the details of these different trips. And we literally have people all over the world. So that continues to motivate me. And I do think that there's kind of a newer generation, we call them PIs, principal investigators, professors, that are leading research, a newer generation of PIs that really want to partner up front. I mean, one of my roles is when new PIs start, we kind of do this welcome and kind of share resources and kind of talk about planning up front. And I just see a completely different attitude about, getting training, getting set up to be successful from the beginning, and incorporating health and safety and risk management into that. Whereas when I first started, there's sort of a traditional mindset that, field researchers may not want any oversight and are dismissive. And, maybe we'll say, oh yeah, to their students, like Wilderness First Aid is a good idea, but not really engage on the details of their work. You see a shift in all of that. And so that's motivating to me as well.
Cool. Well, we're almost out of time. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I haven't?
I think we covered a lot. And again, I think my position is sort of unique, but the challenges and maybe the strategies, are relevant in a lot of different positions. This year I think has been different in so many ways. 2020, since the pandemic started and sheltering in place, I know that a lot of outdoor work, a lot of outdoor programs have been impacted. I think many of us are struggling with the uncertainty and not having control over, things that are important to us and that we want to be working on. So being part of a research institution, I think in some ways helps me kind of be more resilient and see that we're going to get through this, because we have so much innovation going on. We have such incredible researchers, and people are thinking in completely new ways, and long-term projects are maybe on hold so that people can figure out this other thing that's more urgent now. And it's actually been very uplifting being part of a research organization during this time. And I think on a personal level, working from home more, being with my kids at home, the reflection on all these different issues we're faced as a society, I'm hopeful that reflection and kind of reprioritization, recalibration of our goals and our, even our lifestyles and how we interact with each other, that will come out of this in a more positive way. So just think maybe I'll end on that.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Actually, hearing something positive like that, I listen to the news and everything is so dire, and I really appreciate your optimism, and that's a gift to me. I want to congratulate you again on receiving this award. You join a host of people that have influenced our field, and I'd like to stay in touch and hear what you do next.
Thanks, Steve. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate the whole steering committee for their acknowledgement and for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about my background and my work. And I look forward to learning and networking more with everyone during the conference.